Guys, and welcome back to CM Rankings and Reviews. Today I thought we would rank all 36 MCU movies and series. There are currently 7 MCU shows and 29 MCU movies, so it's going to be a long video. I decided to do a live stream because typically when I rank these I do a tier list, but today I thought I would actually go back and rank all of the movies from worst to best, not on a tier list. I got my list here. I'm just going to check if the audio is working. Yep. So we're good on that front. Before we get into it, though, I do want to say hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. It does my channel a lot of good. I do want to get into this, but I do have to say another thing. Go follow me on Twitter if you haven't already at ReviewsCM. That's at ReviewsCM. You can see it right down here. I post reviews on there. I post polls on upcoming videos. I post rankings. I cover a lot of news on Twitter, and I give my thoughts on them. So that's going to be there. Also, another announcement. The week of August 9th to 10 days after that, I'm going to be on vacation. So I already filmed some videos that are going to go up then. However, any new news will not be covered or trailers. So if that's why I'm not covering it, if that's on that week. Anyway, let's get into this. It's going to be a long video, like I said, but let's just get into it. Okay, so coming in 36th place, I have Thor: The Dark World. Now, was this really a surprise to anybody? Every single list I read or I watch, people always have Thor in last place. Thor: The Dark World is just a bland, forgettable movie, and there's not much to this movie other than Thor and Loki's relationship. That's the best part of the movie for me. I really think what they did with Thor and Loki worked really well, and I like their relationship. And I like what they did with Frigga, Thor and Loki's mother. That was cool. I like that aspect. The Warriors 3 are fun in here. Other than that, there's not much to offer. The color palette really makes this movie not fun to rewatch because kind of just it's kind of just dark and it's not very fun. There's not a lot of funny moments in here, and granted, you don't need funny moments to make it a great movie like The Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier's not a hilarious movie, but it does have some humorous moments sprinkled throughout. This movie, there's barely any, and what they were going for here kind of conflicts a lot. I don't know what they're kind of going for because sometimes it just feels like a lot of different movies kind of put together in a boring mess. Also, the villain Malekith is one of the worst MCU villains, probably the worst. I can't even tell you what he did. He's very forgettable. He's played by Christopher Eccleston, I think. He's a very good actor, except for in here. He has nothing to do, and can you really blame him? It's probably the writers. They didn't give him anything to do. He's forgettable. He's one of the worst MCU villains, and that's another reason why Thor: The Dark World comes in 36th place. In 35th place, I have Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel is a movie I just rewatched the other day to see if I was going to like it more than when I first watched it. And on third viewing, no, not really. It's still very kind of bland, and it's very boring, which is very surprising for these new MCU movies. Most of them have kept me entertained. It's more the Phase 1, some of Phase 2 movies that I get bored with. I still love all the MCU movies because they all tell one kind of giant story, so I do enjoy every MCU movie, even Thor: The Dark World. However, there are some that I just don't care to rewatch. Captain Marvel is one of them. We do get a lot of fun characters in the mix. Korath, it's really fun to see. Jamon Hansoon come back and play him. It's fun to see Lee Pace return, and we just get a lot of fun characters returning to the cast. And other than that, we get Clark. Oh, we also get Phil Coulson and Samuel L. Jackson, and we get introduced to Ben Mendelsohn's Talos. Other than that, there's not much in here. I think that what they do with Captain Marvel and the Rambeaus is very boring. I did not like what they did with them on Earth. To me, it just really slowed down the movie, and it really lost my attention. It really did. It's not entertaining, and that's the problem with this movie. I don't have a problem necessarily with the character of Captain Marvel. However, she's one of the weaker Avengers. Brie Larson's okay as the character, but she's not given much to do really in this movie. Kind of just play an emotionless character who has amnesia. And when you have amnesia in a movie and it doesn't give you a lot to like weight emotionally, because you don't know really what's going on, who anybody is, what happened before. So they kind of just made her a character that I just don't really care about. In 34th place, I have Iron Man 3. This is a movie I've seen once, and about once and a half. I watched it all the way through once, and then I watched it again, and I just did not care for it. This is a movie that I think some like Happy really get to shine in here. Other than that, there's not a lot that I love in this movie. It's just an average MCU movie. What they kind of retcon the ending with all the Iron Man suits in Age of Ultron. They get rid of that, so it's kind of like, what was the purpose of Iron Man 3? I know it does have its fans. It does have its loyal supporters. I am not one of them. To me, Iron Man 3 is kind of the most forgettable MCU movie. There's not a lot in here that's going on. Some people have this up a lot higher. To me, Iron Man 3 just falls flat, and it's the one that I really don't feel like ever rewatching, just like Captain Marvel and Thor the Dark World. And by the way, Thor the Dark World and Captain Marvel are on my D tier. If I were to do a tier list, they'd be on my D tier. But anyway, so that's Iron Man 3 comes in 34th place. In 33rd place is the black sheep of the MCU, the Incredible Hulk. Now, I actually enjoy rewatching this movie because I always find something new every time I rewatch it, and it's like, oh, I forgot about that. And that's cool that they have that in there. Ty Burrell's in here. I forgot about that. Other than that, this movie does feel like the black sheep, and it does feel like kind of the least consequential of the MCU movies until really She-Hulk. And, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross was in some other MCU movies like Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame and Black Widow. But other than that, the connections to this movie don't feel that strong. It doesn't feel like it's necessary viewing. And I'm not going to fault that towards it, because there are some other movies on here that just kind of feel inconsequential, but I still enjoy them. However, on a movie standpoint, it does feel sloppy at points. It does feel very weird, and it does not always fit the MCU. But other than that, that's why it comes in 33rd place. In 32nd place, I have Thor. Now, Thor is a movie that I rewatched for Love and Thunder, and I thought it was decent. I don't love this movie. I think it's good. It's just, there's something about Thor that I just don't really care about in this movie, and I don't know what it is, because this character, for the modern Thor, this character in the first Thor is nothing like him. They are two separate characters. They don't even feel really close to the same, other than kind of them. And I like Thor in here. I think Chris Hemsworth does a good job, and I love Asgard. Asgard is absolutely phenomenal, probably at its best in this movie. It just really feels Shakespearean and grand and great. And in Thor the Dark World, it feels kind of dark, and Ragnarok, it's kind of played off as a joke. And Love and Thunder, well, it's not even in Love and Thunder, but Asgard is at its best in this movie. Also, the Warriors 3, we get a lot of them, and I'm a big fan of them, actually. I really enjoy when they're on screen. I think they have great chemistry with Thor. However, once they get to Earth, I kind of just zone out and I stop caring. The villain in here is supposed to be Loki, but that's not really revealed till close to the end. And then you got this big walking monster machine looking thing that just blasts energy, and that comes to, I think they're in New Mexico. Other than that, I don't really remember much about this movie, even though I watched it a couple weeks ago. Heimdall's barely in it. Odin's okay. Loki's not his greatest in here. I do enjoy Loki, though, but he's not to the level that he is in other MCU movies and shows. Okay, coming in 31st place is the first MCU show, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's right. This show, I recently rewatched this, so I'm trying to rewatch all the MCU shows. I'm currently halfway through Loki. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was really hard to get through. It took me about 2 months because I just kind of fell off of it, and I didn't really feel like I needed to rewatch it. It's just kind of boring in my opinion, and what they do with the villains, the Flag Smashers, I hate Carly. She's not a good villain. What they do with her is very contradicting of... She stands for this, and then she's blowing up hospitals, and it's like, why? She's not very convincing as a villain, just because of just her motivations and what she does, and it's just like, you're not a good villain, neither are the Flag Smashers, so that really took me out of it. Zemo's great. We get more of the Dora Milaje, who are phenomenal in this show, and it's good to see them outside of Wakanda and around the world, because they are one of the coolest groups in the MCU, so it's great to see them in here. However, it's just boring, and it gets too political at times, where it's just like, this isn't an MCU show anymore, it's a political commentary, and I'm fine with some of that in like the Captain America the Winter Soldier. They did it perfectly. And here, it's very heavy-handed, and that just kind of takes you out of the show, especially in the season finale, when you have Sam giving that, like, 2-minute speech, and it's like, this doesn't seem very realistic. Now, I know the MCU is not realistic, but standing up and giving a 2-minute speech to a bunch of people, while what he said was important, it just felt out of place, and that was a lot of what happened with this show. I just felt bored through most of it, and I don't care that they're building the boat for his sister. Like, why did we do that for a whole episode? That was just a waste of time, and it was a waste of money, really, because they didn't really advance the plot for the two characters at all. I don't get why they were building Sarah Wilson's boat. Sam and Bucky, we got some good moments with them, but overall, they didn't get as much as I would like to of this buddy cop stuff. Also, Sharon Carter, we didn't get a lot of her in the show. She was barely in the show. They advertised her as like part of the main three with Sam and Bucky. She was barely in it, and she's the power broker. So, surprise there. Overall, this show kind of really frustrates me. The only reason I have it above Thor is because the action in here is really good, and I like watching the action. I like some of the moments. Zemo's good, but the villains suck, and some of the stuff they did in here just felt unnecessary. If you were to watch Endgame, and if you were to watch the new Captain America movie that's coming out, this really just kind of feels like filler, and it's not really necessarily. Anyway, Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes in 31st place. In 30th place is Iron Man 2, a movie that used to be in my top 10 when I was a lot younger. I used to absolutely love this movie, and then as time went on, it fell a lot. As I rewatched the movie, I felt kind of bored rewatching it, not because I've seen it so many times, because I've only seen it about like 3 times, but just because it feels like a very set up movie. It feels like they're setting up the Avengers heavily. They are really going in there. We get Nick Fury, S.H.I.E.L.D. is in here a lot, and it really feels like a setup movie to the Avengers. And also, they're trying to deal with, like, you're dealing with Tony's alcohol abuse. You're dealing with Whiplash and Justin Hammer, not Armie Hammer, Justin Hammer's character. You're dealing with all these different plot lines, and you're trying to juggle them. You got the World Grand Prix, you got all this other stuff. Black Widow's in here, and I often forget that this is her introduction, because she's not in it that much, and she feels so generic in here. She doesn't feel like kind of where she came to be as the MCU went on. So that's why Iron Man 2 just kind of falls flat for me nowadays. It's not very entertaining to me. So yeah, Iron Man 2 comes in at 30th place. In 29th place, I have Black Widow. Now, this is a movie I actually really enjoy and I like to rewatch. I've seen it about 3 times now, and I really do enjoy rewatching this movie. It's very fun to watch. I like the characters of Black Widow. First of all, Scarlett Johansson is great. As always, I love her character in here. I think she does a really good job. And then I also think that Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, and Yelena Belova, played by Florence Pugh, they do a great job. And they really make Black Widow not from like the bottom 5. Black Widow is really elevated by Red Guardian and Yelena. They really steal the show. If this movie does feel a little late, but if you watch it in between, like kind of right after Civil War and before Infinity War, it's a good movie. And it should have been a Phase 3, Phase 2 movie, but they decided to do it in Phase 4 to kick off the phase, and it feels the most generic out of all the MCU movies. We got a question. Will you do another Star Wars ranking for Andor? I will. Andor just got delayed to September 21st, which is pretty disappointing. We just got the trailer for that today. It just got delayed. Yes, I will do another ranking, and it'll also include Bad Batch Season 2, because that's coming out soon, and Tales of the Jedi. So every time we get a new MCU movie or new Star Wars, I'll probably try to do a ranking of some sort. So yes, there will be a ranking for that. So I was on Black Widow. In 28th place, I have Miss Marvel. The newest MCU show is also second to the worst in the MCU shows. Now, it's not bad necessarily. The first 3 episodes I absolutely love, and if it was that continued on for the entire show, it would have been a lot better. However, episodes 4 and 5 are really disappointing. What they do, why they had to take Kamala Khan to Pakistan, I don't know. It felt more like if this was a 20 episode thing, it felt more like it'd be like episodes 8 and 9, and it felt more like a middle chapter to a longer season. However, when you're only doing 6 episodes, which is a lot of the problems with the MCU shows, it gets too rushed, and I don't think what they did with the clandestines didn't need to be there. It really just felt like they shoehorned them in. They really had nothing to do with the final battle. Like they set up these villains and then they're not in the battle at the end, and they're not even the main villain of the show. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Damage Control was at the forefront for villains. However, they made instead of making the guy from Spider-Man No Way Home, Agent Cleary, instead of making him kind of the main villain, they make this other member there on the Damage Control the main villain. And I don't get why they did that, because she's a lot, and I mean a lot less interesting than him. He has charisma, he's funny, and he really makes you kind of like his character. She, on the other hand, was kind of just underdeveloped and not a very great villain. That's another reason why Miss Marvel falls this low, is because the villain problem, it feels rushed. The final episode I thought was okay, but to me, episodes 1 through 3 were great, and then it really took a steep drop off, which is very sad. Which is a very sad thing. We got another question. Do you like The Simpsons, Star Wars, Marvel? I like all 3 of those. I absolutely love Simpsons. I really do like The Simpsons. It's a really fun show. And then Star Wars and Marvel. I think Marvel, for me, I like Marvel a little better than Star Wars, but I still love Star Wars. So I love all 3 of those franchises. Let's keep going on this list. So we just got done with 28 was Miss Marvel. So in 27th place, I have Hawkeye, another MCU show that I felt a little disappointed by. Hawkeye's one of my favorite Avengers. I've always loved his character, so I was very excited for him to get his own show. However, I was very disappointed with this show and what they did. To me, I know the show is called Hawkeye, and that could be the mantle of Kate Bishop too. She could also take the mantle. I just wanted more of Jeremy Renner's character, and I guess it's more of expectations. I was expecting more kind of serious tone at like dealing with Ronan. They do deal with the character of Ronan and his and Clint Barton and how he dealt with that a little bit with the costume and stuff. I don't think they handled that very well. To me, that was very disappointing, and the street gang that they did was very kind of silly, and I didn't really care for that. I forgot what they were called, the Tracksuit Mafia. They were very forgettable, a lot like the clandestines in Miss Marvel. They were very forgettable villains. Echo's introduced in here, and I didn't really love her character. I'm intrigued by her character, and I can't wait to see her in her own show. However, I wouldn't necessarily say her character necessarily was phenomenal in this show. Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld did a good job. Jeremy Renner was fun. Lucky the pizza dog was not in as much as I would like, but he was still cute to have around every once in a while. Who doesn't like a golden retriever? He was fun in the show. He got one eye. Other than that, Kingpin was introduced in here. A lot of people are complaining he didn't get a lot to do. They really kind of made him weak, and me only having watched the first season of Daredevil, I didn't get too attached to Kingpin. He's a phenomenal villain, but I wasn't so heavily attached to his character. Hawkeye comes in that place. In 26th place for me is Ant-Man, the original Ant-Man. Ant-Man and the Wasp will be quite far ahead. The original Ant-Man to me is good. I wouldn't necessarily say I think it's great. It's not going to be great. It's just going to be a small-scale MCU movie, and that's what I really like about this and respect about this movie is that they really go small-scale. I think the relationship between Scott Lang and his daughter works really, really well. And I really do like that aspect of this movie. Hank Pym is great in here. I think he's better in the sequel, though. And Hope Van Dyne. I don't really care for her character in here all that much. I like when she's actually the Wasp and she gets action scenes. And I actually think the Wasp has cooler action scenes than Ant-Man. I like Ant-Man's character better, though. In here, though, we don't get a lot of the Wasp. Actually, we don't get any. We just get her revealed in the end credit scene that she's getting the suit. Scott Lang does a good job. The end battle with the Thomas the Train thing, while it's funny, I think it's one of the weaker MCU battles, and I don't think Yellow Jacket's very memorable. There are rumors about Corey Stoll returning in the future, playing a different character, so I might be excited for that, but this character just... I don't care for the Yellow Jacket. He's just not an MCU villain that I can get behind and that I absolutely love. He's just not one of those characters. So that also really kind of hurts the movie for me because I just don't care about the character all that much. Scott Lang's fun in here. Michael Pena, David Dastmalchian, and I forgot the other guy's name. He's a rapper, I think. And he's in that kind of group. Scott Lang's kind of criminal group is phenomenal in here. They're hilarious. They're fun. Other than that, though, this movie does feel too small scale for me. And I just, every time I rewatch it, I don't feel interested in the characters and their goal of stealing something. I don't even really remember kind of what it's about. I do... So Falcon, we do get Falcon in here, and the end credits, we do get Bucky and Steve returning, even though it is just a scene from Civil War. It's nice seeing Falcon in here, kind of branching out on his own after the Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron. We really see him kind of come into his own, and that's really fun in here to see him battle Ant-Man. Other than that, though, it's just kind of a mid-MCU movie. It's just kind of okay to me. It's not phenomenal. I'm going to be back in about 30 seconds. I just have to do one thing real quick. Okay, so we just got done with Ant-Man, which was in 26th place. In my 25th place is Doctor Strange, possibly one of the biggest mixed bags of the MCU for me, as the visuals are the best in the entire MCU. The visuals are phenomenal in here. Doctor Strange is a character I enjoy, even though it does feel like Tony Stark. However, I do feel bored every time I watch this movie. Every time we get to the part where he's in Carmartage and he's just training for like a lot of the movie and he's just learning the stuff, I do feel myself getting a little bored. However, it's not overwhelmingly bored, and I still enjoy myself in this movie. The end battle with Dormammu is really cool, and I like that. Caecilius is a decent villain, but the visuals and Benedict Cumberbatch and Wong, and Benedict Wong, both of those two actors really kind of save this movie for me. And I also really do like the Ancient One. I think her character is great. Christine Palmer, I don't really care about as a character. It's cool they brought her back in Doctor Strange 2, but I don't know. I didn't really like her in there as much either. The What If episode, though, with them is one of the best MCU episodes ever. That's about all I have to say about Doctor Strange. I think the opening of this movie is really cool, where Caecilius is trying to steal. I forgot what he's trying to steal. That's just kind of how forgettable at times this movie can be. But the action scene in the beginning is really cool, with the Ancient One kind of stopping them. That's really cool. It's really fun to see just New York kind of be flipped on its side and all these visuals. And the visuals really, really sell this movie for me. And they really make this movie this high on this list. Okay, coming in 24th place, I have Spiderman Far From Home, a movie that I loved a lot when I first watched it. However, on repeat viewing, it's fun. That's about all it has going for it. I like the character of Mysterio. I really do like his character in here. And I think that Tom Holland and Zendaya, they all give a great performance. It's fun to see Nick Fury interact with Spider-Man. That's really cool to see. However, I find myself getting bored at times. I'm just tired of seeing okay, so just one second. Okay, so what was I saying? Sorry, just had a bot in the chat. Spider-Man Far From Home. Like I said, Nick Fury, great character in here. Mysterio's good. However, I just feel like the going on a European trip it feels very kind of repetitive and like we've done it before. And well, I'm fine with having Spider-Man really anywhere on Earth. He doesn't necessarily have to be in New York. Some of the stuff they did in here just doesn't work for me. What they did with the glasses that Spider-Man has and why Tony Stark gave them to a kid who's been snapped for 5 years, I don't know. I still enjoy it, though, and this is a turn your brain off type of movie. I really enjoy John Watts' Spider-Man movies, not as much as some other people, but I do enjoy Spider-Man Far From Home. In 23rd place, I have Captain America, the First Avenger. I really do enjoy Captain America, the First Avenger. This movie is the best origin story for me for Phase 1. I love what they did with the old-timey it's kind of cheesy, especially with Red Skull's mask and how he looks really cheesy. But to me, at the time that this takes place, it really works. And it really works. Okay. It really works. And I think what they do with the whole World War II stuff really works a lot. And I really love what they did with him and his origin story, how he starts off really kind of skinny and weak, and he gets to be strong. Peggy Carter's great in here. Sebastian Stan's not in a lot, but when he is, he really makes up for it. Tommy Lee Jones is really good in here as well. And I really like the whole origin story aspect again. However, when they kind of montage through the war, that's where I kind of get lost, and it feels, well, not lost, but more so bored, and it kind of feels like, really, why are we doing this? I don't get it. But I enjoyed the first half of this movie a lot, and if it kept up that quality for the entire movie, it would have been a lot higher, but I still love the first Avenger. Coming in 22nd place is another MCU show, Moon Knight. Moon Knight, when it first started, was really, really great. I really loved Moon Knight when it first came out. I thought it worked really well. I loved the whole Egypt mythology and all that stuff. It worked a lot, and I really loved that aspect of the show. However, with episodes 4 and 5, it kind of felt a little more generic, actually more so 5 and 6. It felt like it just kind of got into, let's have these big gods fight. And while that was really cool, and I love what they do on the boat, and I like what they do with Steven's character, and Mark, and what they do with that kind of the split personality, works a lot, and I really love that aspect. And Oscar Isaac gives one of the best MCU performances of all time. However, it's just a couple episodes in here really kind of hold it back for me. It's kind of when it turns a little generic, because this show started off really great. It's kind of hard to see it go a little generic. There we go. In 21st place for me is Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, a lot of people will have this a lot higher, maybe. I used to have it a lot higher. I've rewatched this probably the most out of any MCU movie. It's very rewatchable. It's very rewatchable. However, the movies that are ahead of it, movies and shows ahead of it, I just like a lot more. That's why it comes in this place. I like Michael Keaton as the Vulture. I like Robert Downey Jr. in here, as well as I like seeing Tony Stark and Peter Parker's relationship, and I like the origin story of Peter Parker and kind of how he became Spider-Man. We don't really get to see when he got bit by the spider or any of that stuff, but that's fine, because what they do in here with his character going through high school with his friends, and kind of not Avenger level stuff, but he is dealing with a lot of stuff. He's trying to stop these arms dealers. We do get Donald Glover in here. He's great. The Vulture, again, is a great villain. The Shocker is a kind of forgettable villain, and the Tinkerer is also a forgettable villain. However, they fit fine in this movie, and this movie is overall just a fun movie that I can watch every once in a while. Is it as great as when I first watched it? No, and I think maybe that's because I have seen it too many times. And it just, every time I watch it now, I just feel myself kind of getting a little bored. But I do still enjoy this movie, and I think the humor works really well, and the lighthearted kind of Breakfast Club tone of this movie works a lot. And John Watts definitely has a distinct style in the MCU for Spider-Man compared to the other Spider-Man. and I really do enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, next up, in 20th place, I have Avengers Age of Ultron, another movie just like Iron Man 2 and Homecoming that used to be a lot higher but has since fallen. I really enjoy Age of Ultron. I think Ultron is one of the best MCU villains. I think he's very underrated in the MCU. Pietro and Wanda Maximoff are really great in this movie, and I love to see what they did with their characters. I wish they didn't kill off Pietro, but that's not my problem with the movie. My problem is it does feel a little overstuffed. It feels like we have all these characters, and we have the Avengers, and the Avengers was such a success, and it's such a great movie. Let's just kind of, everything that worked in there, let's times it by 2, and that doesn't always work all the time, and I think this is a big example of that. A lot of the stuff in here feels overshadowed, but I do enjoy stuff like seeing Hawkeye's family. I really love that aspect of this movie. I also like Black Widow in here and Hulk. Their relationship's a little weird, but the acting from Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, all the original Avengers, except for Thor, are really good. Thor in these Avengers movies isn't great until really Infinity War. We also get cameos from Idris Elba in here, who a lot of people forget in here. I'm pretty sure Haley Atwell cameos as well, and kind of the dream sequences, and that all works very well. And they do set up Thor Ragnarok with this movie, and I enjoy it. And I enjoy the Avengers aspects, the quips between everybody, how like they just kind of work off each other, and the humor in here works well for me. But it does feel a little overstuffed. But I still really enjoy it. There's a lot of fun scenes, especially when they're all trying to lift Mjolnir. That's a really fun scene. That's really fun. The action here is great. We get not a lot, but we get Ulysses Claw. We get a lot of other characters in here that sometimes I forget about that were in this movie, like Rhodey. He's not in it a lot, especially Sam Wilson. He's in here, but he doesn't really get to do all that much. At least Rhodey's in the end battle. There are lines in here that do set up Civil War with Bucky Barnes between Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers. They do kind of talk about that. So it's a good setup movie, even though Avengers movies should be movies that are set up too. But this movie does set up to other stuff. It's very fun. It feels overstuffed, and that's why it comes in 20th place. Okay, in 19th place is the newest MCU movie, Thor Love and Thunder. This movie might fall down farther as I rewatch it. I've only seen it once, but I was a little disappointed by this movie, Thor Love and Thunder. I still really, really enjoyed it. Thor Love and Thunder is still a movie that I really want to rewatch. I can't wait till it comes out on digital or onto Disney Plus, because I will definitely be rewatching it day one that it comes out again. Thor Love and Thunder, it has funny aspects. It has that. But overall, the humor to me fell flat a lot of the time. I don't think it was as funny as Ragnarok. I think Ragnarok is really funny, and that's why you'll see it a lot higher up here. And I really do like Thor Love and Thunder. However, some moments in here kind of just don't feel, they feel too funny, too overly silly, too much. And I think they went a little overboard with this, just like Age of Ultron, where they timed stuff by 2. They definitely timed stuff by 2 in Thor Love and Thunder. And I like the Guardians in here. I like Korg, not as much as I like Korg in Ragnarok. I actually don't love Korg's character in this movie. Valkyrie's underused. Love what they did with Jane, though. I didn't care for her character at all before this, and they really made me care about her character, and I really started to like her character. So it's cool to see her return. Chris Hemsworth does great as always, but Gore the God Butcher is really a great villain. I wish he got more screen time, but it's fine. The reason why it's so high up, a lot of people might have this in their bottom half. I mean, it's kind of right in the middle for me, is because Thor Love and Thunder is a fun movie, and it's a turn your brain off MCU movie. It doesn't have a lot of big implications. The Guardians, I don't know why they had Thor go with them at the end of Endgame, because they literally are just in here for 10 minutes and then they leave. There's a lot of funny aspects with them, with Kraglin being married a lot, Mantis and Nebula. They're very fun. Mantis trying to make goat noises and Nebula trying to kill the goats. That's fun, I guess, but other than that, the Guardians don't have a lot to do. I wish they had a little more to do, but overall, the movie feels a little too rushed for me. That's why it's not in like my top 15, but I still really enjoy Love and Thunder. It's a fun movie, and maybe on rewatch at home when I'm not in a theater full of laughter, it might fall down a little bit, but as of now, it comes in at 19th place. Okay, I'm going to take a 30-second break, and I will be right back. Okay, I decided to get a drink of water. I'm gonna go a little quicker. In 18th place, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I really love Guardians Volume 2. I know a lot of people don't like Volume 2. They think it's too different from the first movie. And while it does differ in some aspects in terms of the team and like they separate the team, I still find it to be very funny and very rewatchable, very enjoyable. And I like what they did with Nebula. I think it was cool to have her be in it a lot more, have more stuff to do. And I think it was very cool to see that. It was very cool to get Mantis introduced. Well, I'm not a huge fan of Mantis. I hope we do get more of her in the holiday special and Guardians Volume 3. I don't think they'd kill her off just yet because she is the kind of the newest member of the team. Well, other than Kraglin, this movie does great with Yondu's character. What they do with his character is just great, and kind of passing the mantle with the arrow to Kraglin, I think works really well. The end credit scene, there's like 5 of them. They're kind of just funny stuff, funny little kind of one-off stuff. I enjoyed this. I think Ego's a good villain. I know a lot of people might disagree with me on that, but I think Ego is a really good villain. And I just like the team in here. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's going to be sad to see this team go away in Volume 3. Gamora is okay in this movie. Star-Lord's good, but to me, Drax, Rocket, Groot, Yondu, and Nebula are the highlights in this movie, and Star-Lord a little bit. But my main gripe with this movie and why it's not higher is because they do separate the team. They do kind of pull the team apart for a lot of this movie, which kind of sucks because the first movie was them getting together, finally feeling like a family. And this movie, we do have family aspects to the team. However, they are separated for a lot of the movie. Coming in at 17th place, I have What If. Now, this might be way lower on some people's list. This might even be last place on some people's list because it does feel inconsistent at times. However, I loved most of the show. A lot of people don't like a lot of episodes. I like all the episodes. I don't hate any of the episodes. I don't dislike any of the episodes. I think episode one with Captain Carter is good. But the T'Challa episode 2, is really great. I love episode 3, and episode 4 with Doctor Strange is great. The zombie episode to me was great. I love that episode too. The episodes that I don't care for all that much are Tony Stark and Killmonger, and then Party Thor. And then the last 2 episodes of What If are both really good and really kind of tie in the Guardians of the Multiverse, and that's really cool. And I really like those last 2 episodes. I can just rewatch those 2 episodes kind of on their own, and they're very fun to watch. All these other episodes tie together, kind of like a mini Avengers, just a lot less developed. I love the animation. People think it looks cheap. I love the animation. I just love this show, and I can't wait for season 2 and season 3. So this show is definitely a good show in my opinion. This is a lot lower because some people find it inconsistent and maybe not like influential on the rest of the MCU, but to me that doesn't really matter. I'm just judging it based on content. Did I enjoy myself? Not necessarily does it help the greater MCU? And it was confirmed that the Captain Carter in here is not the one in Multiverse of Madness. Oh well, what are you gonna do? The show is still MCU multiverse canon, and I do believe that if you're a multiverse and you're made by Marvel Studios, you're canon. If you're like Morbius, or if you're in the Venom, or if you're the old Spider-Man movies or the X-Men, it's not. Those are not canon. It has to be made under Kevin Feige and under Marvel Studios, and has to be a part of Phase 4 or one of the phases and in the MCU timeline on Disney Plus, which What If is. That's why I included it on this list, even though some might say it's a multiverse story. It doesn't count, but I count it. In 16th place, I have Eternals, one of the other movies that on rewatch, it's fallen a bit. This used to be in my top 10 because when I first watched it, I loved Eternals. I thought it was phenomenal. Well, actually, I don't think it was in my top 10. It was in like my top 15, but now it's 16. What they do with the characters, the thematic storytelling, I really love. I love what they did there. It's really fun to see Kumail Nanjiani do his thing in here. I like his assistant. I love a lot of the characters. Makari's great. Thena's great. Gilgamesh is great. Ajak, and I also didn't really care for Gemma Chan's character. Cersei, I didn't care for her sprite. I really did like Druig, though, and it does. Why it is not higher is because they do try to fit so many characters into this movie, and they try to interweave all of them, and through like thousands of years of history. It's cool to see that, but it's too long, and I do feel myself getting bored in this movie at times, but I still really love this movie. Eternals comes in 16th place. In 15th place for me is Ant-Man and the Wasp. This might be a lot higher than a lot of other people's lists. I absolutely love Ant-Man and the Wasp. What they do with the character of Ghost, I think, works really well. But I love seeing Scott and Hope in this movie as Ant-Man and the Wasp, going on action sequences, going and just kind of fighting street-level bad guys. And I know that was one of my problems with Hawkeye, but I love rewatching Ant-Man and the Wasp. I really do. It's so fun to rewatch. I know this is really on people's bottom half. I love this movie, and it's one of my most rewatched MCU movies. Ant-Man and the Wasp is just a fun movie, and I think what my problems with the first Ant-Man were kind of done away with and weren't as prevalent in here, and what I liked about that movie was kind of amped up, but it wasn't like to the level of Thor Love and Thunder or Age of Ultron where it's too much, because in the first Ant-Man it was never to the level of like Ragnarok or the original Avengers. So when they amped stuff up, it kind of just made it great, and it didn't make it too much, and that's why it comes in that place. In 14th place, I have Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, this is very controversial as well. However, I don't love this movie as much as I did when I first saw it in the theater. I think it gets too much, well, it's not overrated, but a lot of people have this really high on their list based on fan service. And while fan service is great, and fan service is that, the story and the writing aren't all that great. And that's why it kind of has fallen. And outside the theater, it doesn't play as well. So it has fallen quite a bit. It used to be like top 5 MCU. Now it's 15. Well, it's 14th. So it's just the writing's not great, and some of the stuff in here I don't like what they did. Some of the characters feel underutilized in here, but I do like seeing Toby and Andrew back in here, but it's just not enough. You can't just bring them back and say, boom, automatic. But I like what they did with Aunt May, and I like what they did kind of killing her off and making her making it more emotional for Peter, and he's dealing with that while also helping these villains, and it really adds an emotional weight, which I do love about this movie, and I still love this movie. It's just, I think, is as great. It doesn't carry it as much as others would like to think, in my opinion. In 13th place, I have the original Iron Man, a movie that used to be a lot lower, and on rewatch, it's gone a lot higher. I really do enjoy Iron Man. I think what they do with the characters in here really works, setting up Tony Stark, setting up the MCU. It did it perfectly. That's why it comes in this place. I think Ironmonger's a good character, and I actually really like Jeff Bridges as a character. It's like hard to keep your eyes off the screen when he's on because he just gives his performance. It's like grand and just kind of huge performance, and he gives his all. And I like the 10 rings in here and the terrorist organization really kind of add this element to the first MCU movie that I don't think we've really seen in in any other MCU movie. It feels kind of grounded, and it feels like it kind of can happen. Now, I'm not saying I love a lot of these MCU movies. I love actually pretty much all of them. But it does feel the most grounded, and I'm not necessarily faulting other MCU movies for that. And actually, I love the other MCU movies for not feeling grounded. But it's nice to have a different mix of movies, and it's nice to see Iron Man kind of a gritty MCU movie because it's kind of not necessarily street level, but it is like he's dealing with the terrorist organization. He's trying to get out, and then he has all these other problems that he's working with. And I really like that. Terrence Howard as Rhodey was okay. I think Don Cheadle does a way better job as the character. I know some people think Terrence Howard should have kept with the character. I don't. I think Don Cheadle does a better job as the character. Yeah, Iron Man comes in 13th place. In 12th place for me is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, a movie I loved when I first saw it, and on rewatch, I liked it even more. This is just a fun movie. It's a fun movie, and I like the Sam Raimi aspects to it. I like that it is a darker MCU movie. I do like that it has horror aspects, and we do get to see Wanda destroy and kill a lot of people, and that's really fun to see because they are multiverse versions of characters, so they kind of are inconsequential, and I don't want them to do that going forward all that much because it kind of makes the multiverse feel kind of disposable, and they kind of did that with the Illuminati, which a lot of people had big issues with. I didn't have huge issues with. I just wish we would have gotten more of the Illuminati in this movie. But other than that, the visuals in here are great. Wanda in here is phenomenal. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is great. It's fun to see all these different variants. And fan service does not win this movie over for me like Spider-Man No Way Home. I really do think that this movie has great... If you need the Illuminati in here whatsoever, I think Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness would still be this high on my list. I just really enjoy the movie. It's an unpopular opinion. Some people have it lower, and I think that's what you're seeing with my list, is that a lot of movies that people don't like are a lot lower or higher, and they just don't kind of match up with your list, but it's my list. In 11th place is WandaVision, the first MCU show. Really kind of the week-to-week suspense is what really brings this up higher, and this will probably fall as the MCU goes on. It'll probably go down lower just because it was the first MCU show. Everybody was speculating. And what they do with the show and how they set up all these Easter eggs and everything ties together, it was kind of anticlimactic a little bit, but it was very well put together. The writing was great, and it was fun seeing more Wanda. I love the sitcom aspect of here. I love going to different eras of sitcoms because I like sitcoms. So it was cool seeing that in here. But now we are moving into my top 10, which will be more like a lot of other people's top 10s, just because, well, the top 10 MCU is great, and everything in the top 10 is phenomenal. Everything in the top 10 can move around, and really anything on this entire list can move around. I like all the MCU. With the DCEU, there are movies like Batman v Superman, the theatrical cut, which I just do not like. But with the MCU, I like all their movies. Even their worst movie to me is better than a lot of the worst DCEU movies. But let's get into my top 10. In 10th, Civil War. This is a really great movie. What they do with Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Bucky Barnes, that whole aspect works really well. But then we also get the fight in Lagos, which is phenomenal. The airport fight is one of the best fights in the MCU for me, and I like seeing these 12 heroes kind of battle each other. I love that aspect of this movie. It's really fun to see. I like the whole debate of the Sokovia Accords and the moral dilemma that they go through in here. It's pretty great, in my opinion. In ninth place, I have Thor Ragnarok, where Thor Love and Thunder is too goofy. This movie does have a lot of goofy aspects, but it tames it down and was fresh because we hadn't really seen this goofiness in the MCU yet. Now we're getting a little too much of it, but I really enjoy Thor Ragnarok. The humor's great in this movie. I really do like this movie. Okay, coming in at 8th place is Loki. The show I'm currently rewatching was a lot lower until I started rewatching it, and it's gone up a lot higher. I actually think episodes 1 and 2 are phenomenal. I'm only halfway through the show. Again, I've already watched it, but I'm rewatching it. Episodes 1 and 2 are both really, really good. Episode 3, Lamentis, gets a little too much hate. I really like that. And then we get the Loki variants, and then we get Kang. Well, he doesn't really ever say he's Kang, but he's Kang, and that's really fun to see. And the show is just the mystery aspect. It's the best written show, and currently my favorite MCU show. It's very well written, very well acted, and it's fun to see Loki in his own starring vehicle. Coming in at 7th place is Black Panther. This used to be lower on rewatch. I rewatched it after the Black Panther 2 trailer came out. I love that trailer. Black Panther is just a great movie. It's a lot better than I remember it being when I watched it the first couple times when I was a lot younger. Black Panther is just a great movie. What they do with Wakanda and the world of Wakanda, Wakanda's a great place in the MCU. It's a great place to be in the MCU, and it's fun to see what they do with it. It's really cool. That also elevates this movie for me. The Dora Milaje and, of course, Chadwick Boseman just make this movie a great MCU movie, and it deserved its nomination at the Oscars. In 6th place for me is Shangchi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The best movie for me by far of Phase 4 is Shang-Chi, and I really has some of the best action in all the MCU with the martial arts. That stuff really works for me. I love all that stuff, and I love the villain. The Mandarin is great. This movie's really, the comedy works. We get Wong returning Abomination. This movie's just a fun ride. I've seen it twice now, and it's just great. And I love watching it every time I see it. It's thematically rich with the family history and the family kind of tragedy and kind of war that's going on between the Mandarin and Shang-Chi. And we got Katie in here, played by Awkwafina, who's actually really funny in this movie. My only problem with it is the end battle. I think it was great until the giant dragon came in. It didn't need that. It kind of made it into generic CGI battles, which I found myself getting bored. But everything else really outweighs that, and that's why it comes in at number 6. In 5th place for me is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This movie is great. The whole aspect of making it a political thriller works really well. I love the aspect of the political thriller. I love Nick Fury in here, what they do, the fake-out death of him in here. Robert Redford's character is great, and I love the mystery, even though it's not really a mystery, but I love the eeriness of Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier and his connections to Steve, and I love the battle on the helicarrier. I think maybe it's not the I don't know. It's some big plane-like thing where they're fighting, and Steve's just like, I'm not going to fight you. That works really well. Sharon Carter gets introduced in this movie. She's good in here. Sam Wilson gets introduced. He's pretty good in here as well. We get him as the Falcon in here. It's a great movie. In 4th place for me is Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the most fresh MCU movies because we haven't really seen anything like it before. I absolutely love it. The whole team aspects, the comedy aspects, it really works for me. And I love the first Guardians. What they did with Drax and his comedy works. What they did with Ronan works really well for me. I just really, really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy. To me, it's a top 5 MCU movie. It comes in 4th place. Then we have my top 3 MCU movies of all time, which I will kind of bunch up together. Well, actually, my 3rd and my 2nd place. We'll get to my number 1. In third and second, in third place is Infinity War, and second place is Endgame. I absolutely love these two movies. They are a perfect duology of just epic scale, grand movies. Infinity War, I recently rewatched. I love Infinity War. How they handled so many characters, they juggled it so well. I absolutely loved it, and I absolutely loved Endgame. The whole time travel aspect, the whole grieving process after Infinity War, where everybody's gone, works well. I like that Tony Stark got a family. I love the whole aspect of everybody is dealing with the loss of people, and whether it's Hawkeye or even Hulk, where he's like changing himself into Professor Hulk, and it really makes him. It really shows that he's grieving too, and he's bargaining, and all six of the original Avengers are back in here, and it's great to see that. After with Infinity War, we didn't get Hawkeye, and all the Avengers were broken up still from Civil War, so it's nice to see them all return in here. But in first place for me is the original Avengers, a masterpiece. It's my favorite movie of all time. Not going to talk about the first Avengers that much because I absolutely love it. I've talked about it a lot. It's my favorite movie of all time. It's a perfect movie in my opinion, except for Captain America's suit, which looks really bad in here, but I can't really fault the movie for that. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. Comment down below if you're watching this live stream not live. Comment what are your favorite MCU movies? What are your least favorite? Tell me all that down below. I had fun doing this today. It was a blast. I might do this again at the end of the year. With all the other MCU movies when we have I Am Groot, She-Hulk, Werewolf by Night, the Holiday Special, and Wakanda Forever. I might do that again. All 41 MCU movies and series. Man, there's just a lot in the MCU. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you could check out some more videos right now.